Under the thunder-soaked skies of Maple Hollow, a weary police sergeant named John Miller stands before the iron gates of a mansion built on greed and silence. Beside him, Buddy, a scarred German shepherd with eyes that have seen too much, trembles, not in fear but in warning. Somewhere beyond those gates, a woman cries out for mercy, her voice swallowed by the storm, a billionaire's wife, broken and forgotten. What began as a routine call becomes a revelation of sin, buried beneath gold and marble. As John follows Buddy into the shadows of power, he uncovers a secret so dark it could shake the foundations of faith itself. And in that moment, when truth and danger collide, he learns that God's miracles don't always descend from heaven. They sometimes arrive on four paws, carrying courage through the rain. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a like. Your faith keeps these stories of hope and redemption alive. May God bless you and those you love as we begin this journey. The rain came down like broken glass over the marble driveway of the Coleman estate, slicing through the midnight air. Within the gates of the vast mansion, a lone German shepherd bolted through the storm. His name was Buddy, a 6-year-old canine trained dog with sable black fur and intelligent amber eyes that shimmered even under the flashing lightning. Muscles rippled beneath his soaked coat as he darted toward the iron gate, jaws clenched tightly around a dangling metal key fob with a red signal light. Buddy slammed his paw against the emergency sensor by the guard post. A sharp beep echoed through the rain, and far away, a police dispatcher picked up an alarm code never meant to be triggered by an animal. At the other end of Banan, Sergeant John Miller was finishing his shift when the call came through. John, in his late 30s, was a tall, broad-shouldered man with weathered skin and dark stubble that shadowed his jawline. The years of service had carved both discipline and exhaustion into his face. His hazel eyes, steady, deliberate, had once belonged to a man who believed rules could fix everything. But that belief had cracked the night his younger brother, a rookie officer, was killed in a raid gone wrong because of a rich man's silence. Since then, John trusted instincts more than orders. When the dispatcher said, "Unregistered signal from the Coleman estate," something in his gut told him this wasn't a false alarm. He sped through the rain-soaked streets in his cruiser, red and blue lights cutting through the darkness. The Colemans were local royalty, the kind of family whose influence reached City Hall, courts, and newsrooms. Leonard Coleman, the billionaire patriarch, owned half of the county through his pharmaceutical empire. His wife, Evelyn, was rarely seen, the quiet beauty in white dresses and pearl earrings who appeared only in charity photos. Rumor said she was sickly, or fragile, or perhaps just forgotten. None of those rumors mentioned the warehouse that stood behind the mansion, hidden beyond trimmed hedges and iron fences. As John's vehicle turned into the long stone driveway, the first thing he saw was Buddy, standing in the rain, tail stiff, eyes blazing with urgency. The dog barked once, a sharp command, then sprinted toward the back of the property. "Easy, boy," John muttered, stepping out of the car. Rain plastered his uniform to his back as he followed. He'd seen working dogs before, cold, mechanical, trained to obey. But this one moved with a purpose that felt almost human. Each bark seemed to say, "Come now, there's no time." They reached the steel warehouse. Its massive doors swung half open, creaking under the wind. A sour smell seeped into the rain, a mix of disinfectant and burnt chemicals. John's flashlight beam sliced through the dark, revealing rows of metallic drums, stacked crates labeled medical equipment, and puddles shimmering like oil. Then he heard it. A faint moan, fragile and low. He stepped closer. Between two toppled crates lay a woman. Her white dress was torn and soaked, streaked with mud and blood. Her wrists were bound with nylon straps, skin raw beneath them. John knelt, careful not to startle her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The woman stirred, blinking through the wet lashes. Her face was pale, aristocratic yet bruised, the kind of beauty time couldn't erase even under cruelty. Her lips trembled. "He'll come back," she whispered. "Please, don't let him find me." "Who?" John asked gently, slicing through the straps with his pocket knife. "Who did this to you?" She winced as circulation returned to her hands. "Leonard, my husband." The words hit like thunder, louder than the storm. John's grip tightened on the knife. Evelyn Coleman, the Evelyn, was the one lying in the dirt like a discarded secret. Buddy whined beside them, nosing at her shoulder. The woman reached out weakly, fingers brushing the dog's fur. "He tried to protect me," she murmured. "He saw too much." Her eyes flicked toward the far corner where a small table stood. On it, a tray of syringes and glass vials shimmered under the flashlight. Labels read, "Prototype serum, restricted." One vial had shattered, leaving a burn mark on the steel. The smell of acid made John's eyes sting. "Buddy led me here," he said quietly, checking her pulse, weak but steady. "We're getting you out." He lifted her gently. She was lighter than he expected, her frame delicate but marked with bruises that told of nights spent in silence. Outside, the storm howled as if the sky itself wanted to drown the truth. As they reached the doorway, lightning illuminated the mansion behind them. Through the rain, John saw silhouettes moving near the upper windows, too many for household staff. He pressed the radio on his shoulder. "Dispatch, I need backup at the Coleman estate. Possible hostage, chemical evidence on site." Only static answered. The storm was killing the signal. He cursed under his breath. Buddy barked, ears pricked toward the driveway. The faint roar of an engine echoed from somewhere beyond the trees. A black SUV without headlights sped down the hill toward them. "Inside, now!" John ducked back into the warehouse, setting Evelyn behind a crate. His hand went to his holster, but before he could react, every light in the warehouse flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the space whole. Evelyn's trembling voice broke the silence. "They're here!" A metallic clang rang out behind them, the steel doors creaking as they began to close. Buddy growled low, body tense, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. John raised his flashlight, the narrow beam catching a fleeting image, a hand in a black glove pulling the lever shut. And then the door slammed, sealing them inside with the echo of her broken whisper. "We were never supposed to be found." The emergency light flickered to life, bathing the steel warehouse in a pulse of red and white. John Miller steadied his breathing as he lifted Evelyn Coleman into his arms, her frail body trembling against the cold fabric of his uniform. Buddy pressed close behind, his wet fur glistening like burnished bronze under the flashing beacon. The German shepherd's deep growl rumbled through the air, low and deliberate, a living shield between them and the darkness. The metallic scent of chemicals mingled with blood and disinfectant. On the concrete floor lay scattered instruments of cruelty. A half-crushed syringe labeled potassium chloride, a clipboard bearing the logo of the Coleman Foundation for Medical Aid, and a black duffel bag filled with empty vials. The irony bit deep. Leonard Coleman's charity seal printed over poison. John's flashlight beam caught the faint shimmer of gold lettering on a box, for export only. He understood then that this place wasn't just a warehouse. It was a stage for something far more sinister. Evelyn stirred in his arms, her voice weak but urgent. "Don't trust Leonard," she whispered, her eyes fluttering open. They were the color of tarnished amber, once bright, now dimmed by fear and exhaustion. "He owns everyone, the guards, the mayor, even some of your people." Her breath hitched. "There's a cold room under Warehouse 3. That's where it begins." She winced as pain rippled through her back, and John felt anger burn beneath his calm surface. His jaw tightened, the memory of his brother's death flashing before him, how corruption had turned justice into theater. He wouldn't let it happen again. He lowered her gently near the doorway, scanning the shadows. "We're not leaving until I know what's in that cold room." He reached for his radio, thumb pressing the transmit button. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Miller. I need backup at the Coleman estate. Priority 1. Static hissed in reply. He tried again. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Still nothing. A chill crept up his spine. This wasn't weather interference. It was a blackout. Someone was jamming the frequency. Buddy's ears flicked, and he padded toward the far wall where a fuse box hung loose. The dog's nose brushed against a small switch. With one sharp nudge, the emergency corridor lights flicked on. John couldn't help a tight smile. "Good work, partner." Buddy's tail swished once, but his attention remained fixed down the hall. He barked sharply, once, twice, then stared at the door beyond, muscles rigid. Footsteps. 2 men emerged from the shadows wearing gray warehouse uniforms. Their boots sloshed through puddles of rainwater and chemicals. The first, Harlan, was in his 50s, with a gaunt face and sunken eyes that spoke of years lived in silence. His right hand shook slightly, a remnant of an old accident. The other, Deeks, younger and broad-shouldered, sported a week-old beard and a tattoo of a serpent wrapping around his neck. They looked like workers, but their movements were rehearsed, military precise. John set Evelyn gently behind a crate and stepped forward. "Police, hands where I can see them." Harlan froze, eyes darting to Deeks, who smirked instead. "You shouldn't be here, officer," Deeks said, his voice thick with arrogance. "This is private property." His right hand twitched toward his belt. Buddy lunged before John could warn him, snarling, teeth flashing white in the strobe of the emergency light. Deeks stumbled back, shouting. John drew his weapon, steady but cold. "I said hands up!" The older man, Harlan, hesitated. And in that flicker of humanity, John saw the fear of a man trapped between loyalty and survival. "They'll kill us all if we talk," Harlan rasped. "You don't understand what he's built here." But before he could finish, a faint hum filled the air, mechanical, unnatural. From above, a small drone dropped through a broken skylight, its rotors slicing the rain. Red sensors blinked on its belly, locking onto John's body camera. Then came the burst, sparks and static as the feed exploded into white noise. The drone fired again, shredding the nearby control panel before crashing into a stack of crates. The power died instantly. Buddy barked in alarm. John grabbed Evelyn and dove behind a steel column as fragments of metal rained down. Through the smoke and flicker of lightning, he saw Deeks flee toward the exit, dragging Harlan by the arm. Outside, engines roared. The unmistakable growl of SUVs, at least 3 of them, their headlights cutting through the rain like knives. John's heart pounded. They were moving fast, coordinated. He turned to Evelyn. "They're not just covering up, are they? They're cleaning house." Evelyn's face, pale and hollow under the emergency glow, said everything he feared. "Leonard never leaves loose ends," she whispered. The thunder cracked overhead, shaking the ground beneath them. Buddy stood at the doorway, hackles raised, staring into the approaching storm. And as the first SUV breached the gate, John realized this wasn't a rescue anymore. It was a siege. The storm outside had softened into a steady drizzle, but inside the estate grounds, the world felt tighter, like breath caught in a throat. Beneath the marble courtyard of the Coleman mansion ran a narrow maintenance tunnel, lined with rusted pipes and the distant hum of unseen generators. The air was heavy, metallic, thick with damp and secrecy. John Miller led the way, flashlight steady, while Evelyn followed close behind, her once white dress now gray with soot and rain. Buddy walked ahead, paws silent, his nose twitching, the faint growl in his throat warning of things unseen. The tunnel walls dripped condensation, forming tiny rivers that ran into dark grates. It smelled like old blood and machinery. John's boots splashed through shallow puddles as he glanced back at Evelyn. Even exhausted, she carried herself with a quiet grace. Her golden hair, matted from the rain, framed a face that had learned to hide pain behind composure. "You said this tunnel connects to the guest hall?" he asked. Evelyn nodded weakly. "Leonard had it built years ago. He said it was for maintenance, backup wiring, temperature control, but I found out later it's how they moved. Shipments." Her voice cracked on the last word. "No one questions what's underground when the surface shines like charity." Buddy suddenly halted, tail rigid. He sniffed the air, then moved toward a section of wall that looked slightly discolored. John crouched beside him, brushing away grime. The beam of his flashlight revealed a faint seam, a hidden door. "Good boy," John murmured. He ran his fingers along the edge until he found a recessed latch. A low metallic click echoed through the tunnel as the panel slid open, revealing a small storage chamber beyond. Inside, the smell of iron and dust was overwhelming. Buddy whined softly. John stepped inside and froze. A steel safe stood against the far wall, its door cracked open. Inside were folders stamped with government seals, USB drives labeled with dates, and stacks of ledgers bound in red ribbon. Evelyn's trembling hands reached for one and flipped through the pages. Her eyes widened. "These are transfers. Millions routed through the foundation into shell companies." She pulled out a photograph, shipping containers marked medical relief. Under the dim light, the photo revealed night workers loading boxes not into hospitals, but into unmarked trucks. "They're moving black market biotech," John muttered. "Experimental tissue, untested drugs. God knows where they go after this." His mind reeled. Every number, every signature on those forms, each one another body buried beneath a layer of philanthropy. He saw the pattern forming clearly now. Leonard Coleman wasn't saving lives, he was selling them. Evelyn sank against the wall, clutching the papers. "He told me it was about progress, that the research could change the world." Her voice trembled. "I believed him until I found the names of people who donated. They weren't donors. They were missing." John felt the fury rise again, But before he could speak, Buddy growled sharply. From somewhere down the tunnel came a faint echo, footsteps, slow and deliberate. The beam of a flashlight danced along the curved wall ahead. John motioned for silence. "Hide," he whispered. Evelyn crouched behind the safe while Buddy pressed against John's leg, ears low but alert. The footsteps drew closer. Then a man appeared around the bend, a tall figure in a dark raincoat. His face was angular, sharp-jawed, with neatly trimmed silver hair and the cold confidence of someone who believed the law was ornamental. Marcus Vale, Leonard's chief of security. In his 40s, his expression carried the calm of a man who'd spent decades cleaning up other people's sins. Once an ex-private contractor in war zones, Marcus had learned to move like smoke, without conscience, without hesitation. His gray eyes scanned the tunnel like searchlights. "Sergeant Miller," he said, voice low, almost courteous, "you shouldn't have come this far." John stepped out from the shadows, gun drawn. "Step back, Marcus. It's over." Marcus smirked, taking one measured step forward. "You think exposing a few ledgers will change anything? The world runs on the blood you call corruption." His hand twitched near his holster. Buddy growled louder, teeth bared. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then, somewhere above, faint music drifted through the ceiling. A violin, soft and haunting. Evelyn's eyes widened. "That's the gala," she whispered. "He's up there." Marcus tilted his head slightly, listening too. "You see, the show never stops." Then he lunged. John fired once. The bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder. The man staggered back but didn't fall. He fired in return, the shot ricocheting off a pipe. Steam hissed, filling the tunnel with white mist. Buddy leapt forward, knocking Marcus off balance. John seized the moment, kicking the gun from Marcus's hand and slamming him against the wall. The impact echoed like thunder underground. Marcus slumped, unconscious. John caught Evelyn's arm. "We move now." Buddy barked once and sprinted ahead, guiding them through a narrow side passage. The sound of music grew louder, the violins swelling, laughter echoing faintly from above. When they reached the end, a steel staircase climbed upward. John pushed open the hatch at the top, and light spilled through. A chandelier's golden glow, voices, and champagne. They had surfaced directly beneath the grand ballroom. Through the ornate grates, John could see Leonard Coleman, immaculate in his tuxedo, raising a glass to his guests. Behind him, a massive LED screen flickered to life, the first frame of a charity video. Evelyn's breath caught. "He's edited it. He's going to make me look insane." And as Leonard smiled for the cameras, the past's darkest truths waited. Just beneath his feet, the grand ballroom of the Coleman mansion glittered beneath a canopy of crystal chandeliers, each prism scattering light like diamonds across the guests' jeweled attire. The storm outside raged on, but inside, violins played a deceitful melody, a performance for the rich and complicit. John Miller crouched behind a service hatch beneath the stage, his heart pounding. Beside him, Buddy waited, muscles taut, eyes glowing amber under the dim light. Around Evelyn's neck hung the faint shimmer of a locket she hadn't worn in years, a gift from her wedding night, now cold against her bruised skin. The time for hiding was over. Above them, Leonard Coleman stood on the raised dais, the embodiment of charm. At 60, he was still handsome, in that way power makes men handsome. Silver hair slicked back, a tailored tuxedo sculpted to his athletic build, and a smile that could disarm senators. But behind those pale blue eyes was ice. Leonard's voice, deep and practiced, flowed across the hall as cameras flashed. "Tonight," he announced, "we celebrate compassion, our foundation's legacy of healing." Laughter rippled through the crowd of politicians, doctors, and magnates who owed him favors or feared his reach. He turned slightly, signaling the technician behind the LED wall. "Play the video." Evelyn gripped John's sleeve. "He's going to humiliate me publicly," she whispered. John nodded once, calm but tense. "Not if the truth gets there first." He tapped the control pad on his wrist. Hidden inside Buddy's collar, a tiny camera blinked green. "We go live. Now." The ballroom screen flickered. For a split second, the edited charity montage began. Then the feed glitched, cutting to live footage from the cold storage room. Rows of vials, shipment manifests, and the faces of men handling containers marked human tissue samples. Gasps erupted through the room. Leonard's smile faltered for the first time in years. "What is this?" he barked. John emerged from the maintenance hatch, pistol raised but lowered slightly. commanding without threatening. Gasps turned to murmurs as Buddy bounded onto the stage, water still dripping from his fur. The German shepherd halted before Leonard, dropped something at his feet, and barked once. The object rolled into the spotlight, a wedding ring, glinting gold, streaked with dried blood. Evelyn stepped out from the crowd's edge, her voice trembling yet resolute. "You told the world I was unstable, that I hurt myself. But this is your truth, Leonard." Panic spread. A few guests slipped toward the exits, others recorded with their phones. Among them, a man in a white suit, Senator Halloran. Halloran, heavy-set, red-faced, clutching a glass of scotch, turned to leave. John caught the flicker of guilt across his features. "Stay where you are, Senator," he ordered. Halloran froze, sweat beading on his forehead. "You've been signing his permits for years, haven't you?" Leonard straightened, regaining composure like a man rebuilding his mask mid-collapse. "My wife," he said smoothly, voice dripping venom, "has been unstable since her mother's death. She's addicted, delusional. She staged this entire scene to destroy me." He gestured toward the wedding ring. "Look how far her madness has gone." But Buddy barked again, sharp and commanding. His collar light blinked twice. The screen behind Leonard shifted once more, this time showing a hidden recording. Leonard in his office, slamming Evelyn against a desk, the ring flying from her hand, his words like acid. "No one will ever believe you." The room fell silent. The orchestra stopped mid-note. The mask of the philanthropist shattered before hundreds of eyes. Evelyn trembled, tears tracing the outline of her cheekbones. For the first time in years, she didn't hide her scars. Then chaos erupted. Two of Leonard's private security men, both dressed in black suits with earpieces, pushed through the crowd. The first, Vince, tall and heavily built, moved like a trained bodyguard, muscles bulging under his jacket. The second, Calder, lean and younger, eyes darting nervously as if already regretting his orders. John drew his gun, aiming low. "Don't!" he warned. Vince ignored him, lunging. John spun, firing into the ceiling sprinkler system. Water burst forth, cascading over the chandeliers and drenching the room. The fog of mist turned the ballroom into chaos, guests screaming, cameras flashing. Buddy darted through the haze, knocking Vince off balance, teeth sinking into the man's arm. Calder hesitated, then dropped his weapon, raising his hands. "I'm done," he muttered. "You're on your own, old man." Leonard's calm cracked. He backed toward the service door, muttering to himself, "No one cages me, no one." Evelyn saw it first, the hidden elevator panel behind the curtain. "John, he's going for the escape tunnel." John turned just as Leonard pressed the concealed button. The door hissed open, revealing a polished steel corridor leading downward. Leonard glanced back with a half smile. "Catch me, Sergeant, and then talk to me about morality." He disappeared inside as the door sealed behind him. The night air was sharp with salt and smoke, as the storm broke apart over the private docks of the Coleman estate. Waves slapped against the steel hulls of moored yachts, their reflections trembling like ghosts in the black water. Floodlights cut through the mist, casting shifting halos across the rain-slick boards. At the far end of the pier, Leonard Coleman ran, his tuxedo torn, his once flawless composure dissolving into desperation. The billionaire's polished shoes splashed through puddles as he clutched a sleek silver briefcase to his chest. His breath came in ragged bursts, and for the first time, the man who had controlled everything, markets, media, men, looked small against the vastness of the sea. Behind him, Sergeant John Miller advanced, his boots echoing like a metronome of justice. Water dripped from his uniform, and the bruise on his cheek from the ballroom scuffle was darkening, but his focus was steel. "Leonard, it's over," he shouted, voice cutting through the wind. Leonard spun, eyes wild. "You think this is justice?" he barked. "Do you have any idea how many hospitals my company built? How many lives I've bought for people who'd never earned them?" His tone cracked, revealing something close to madness. "You destroy me. You destroy progress." John's jaw tightened. "Progress built on bodies isn't progress. It's rot." Behind him, the sound of claws striking wet wood. Buddy came bounding out of the fog, his golden black fur drenched, teeth bared in determination. Evelyn stumbled behind them, her hair plastered to her face, a borrowed coat thrown over her shoulders. Her voice trembled, but carried conviction. "You didn't build hospitals for people, Leonard. You built monuments for yourself." Leonard hesitated, the boat engine roaring behind him, as a figure appeared in the driver's seat. A man in his 30s with a thick beard and a scar under his left eye. This was Darren Kells, Leonard's private pilot and former enforcer. Darren had the body of a soldier, square shoulders, muscular arms inked with faded military insignia, but his eyes were hollow, the eyes of a man who'd sold his morality long ago. He revved the engine impatiently. "We have 2 minutes, boss," he growled. "Police scanners are lighting up." "Then we go," Leonard hissed. He stepped toward the speedboat, but before his foot touched the deck, Buddy leapt through the air, jaws locking onto Leonard's sleeve. The billionaire shouted, twisting, trying to shake him off. Buddy's muscles rippled, his growl deep and guttural, refusing to release. "Get him off me!" Leonard screamed, his arrogance collapsing into panic. John charged forward, tackling him to the ground. The briefcase flew open, papers scattered across the wet dock, maps, offshore account numbers, and photographs of hidden laboratories. The sound of sirens pierced the night. Police cruisers tore through the fog, red and blue lights, reflecting across the bay. 2 officers sprinted down the dock. One of them, Lieutenant Harper, a woman in her late 40s with a lean build and sharp gray eyes. She had once been John's mentor, a veteran detective whose calm under pressure had earned her the nickname the Ice Lantern. Her presence now felt like both closure and confirmation. "Hands where I can see them," she ordered, her voice firm but controlled. John pressed Leonard's wrists against the wood and snapped the cuffs into place, reciting his rights with measured precision. Leonard barely listened. His gaze was locked on the papers bleeding ink into the rain. Harper crouched beside the open briefcase, scanning the documents. "We've got enough here to bury him and half the board." She looked up at John, a faint smile breaking her stoic face. "Good work, Sergeant. Looks like the right people finally fell." Evelyn approached slowly, the chaos fading into background noise. Her hands trembled as she unfolded a document from the briefcase. Her own medical records, falsified signatures, declaring her unfit, unstable. Her eyes glistened. "He wanted to erase me," she whispered. John shook his head gently. "He failed." Buddy, still panting, sat between them. Harper reached down and patted the dog's head. "That one's a hero," she said softly. "He deserves his own badge." The next morning, as dawn broke over Maple Hollow, Evelyn stood before the press, surrounded by the few officers she trusted. Her hair was clean, her voice steady. "I am filing formal charges," she said, "but this isn't revenge, it's reclamation." Cameras flashed as she announced the creation of the Pink Hope Foundation, dedicated to survivors of abuse and whistleblowers silenced by power. At her side, Buddy wore a blue band with the words Honorary K9 stitched in silver. Evelyn knelt, kissed the top of his head, and whispered, "You taught me loyalty isn't obedience. It's truth that walks beside you." As the press murmured and the sea wind carried away the last echo of sirens, John looked toward the horizon, the first rays of sunlight slicing through the fog. In the distance, the once invincible Coleman Empire lay in ruin. The town of Maple Hollow, long shadowed by wealth and fear, began to breathe again. And in that quiet morning light, truth finally looked like freedom. Sometimes, God doesn't send angels with wings. He sends them on 4 legs, covered in fur, carrying courage instead of words. Buddy was more than a dog. He was a miracle disguised as loyalty, proof that faith can bark through the darkness when every human voice has fallen silent. What happened that night at the Coleman estate wasn't just justice, it was grace. A reminder that no lie is powerful enough to bury the truth God intends to rise. In our everyday lives, we all face storms, betrayal, fear, loss, and silence. But if this story teaches us anything, it's that miracles often come quietly, through small acts of bravery, kindness, and faith. Maybe it's a friend who refuses to give up on you. Maybe it's the strength you didn't know you had. Or maybe, like Evelyn, it's a loyal soul standing beside you when the world turns away. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who needs a little hope tonight. Leave a comment below and tell us what miracle you've witnessed in your life. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of faith, redemption, and the incredible bond between humans and the creatures God places in their path. May the Lord bless you, guide you through your storms, and remind you that light always finds its way, no matter how dark the night may seem.